Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about taking notes. Currently, my school is fully virtual, and many are struggling with various aspects of note taking. We're going to look at how to take notes in a way that will be both efficient and effective. There are many different systems for taking notes, but I'm just going to focus on what I think is the most straightforward way and goes well with AP US History. The first thing I'm going to recommend is for the majority of people, the best way to take notes is by hand. Studies have shown that the connection between the act of writing notes and remembering the information is stronger than typing notes on a computer. However, if you really prefer to take notes by typing them on a computer and you're more comfortable with that, then by all means, keep doing it that way. The second major tip is for taking notes is to not worry about writing everything down from a PowerPoint or Google slide. Focus on summarizing the content in your own words. That way, you're actively thinking about the material and making connections to the content in your mind. The next tip is listening to the verbal cues of your teacher. When they say phrases like, "This is really important," or "Make sure you understand this," the next tip is to make sure your notes are well organized. It does not mean your handwriting has to be great, although make sure you can at least read your own writing. Taking organized notes does mean that you're writing them down in a logical way. So use the headings from lectures and the textbook. Identify when there is a transition in topics. Lastly, is to mentally prepare yourself beforehand. Think about what background knowledge you have about the topic and how information from the lecture or textbook chapter will add to it. When the lecture or chapter is complete, briefly make your own conclusions about what you've learned. So now we're going to take a look at an example of note taking using all of these tips. This example goes along with the John Adams Turbulent Presidency video. The link to that video is in the notes, and I will have it playing on the screen as well. In a future video, I'm going to model note taking for a chapter out of our textbook. Okay, so this is actually my wife taking the notes. She has better handwriting than me, although not the greatest either. But I'm just going to give a little narration so you can understand what you're seeing here. So the first thing she's doing is tapping into her background knowledge about the topic, which is going to be John Adams' turbulent presidency. So the video is going to appear in the upper right-hand corner in a little bit. But she's doing this very important step that everyone else should do, which is trying to build off your background knowledge. If you think of your knowledge as like, of US history as like the shell of a house, okay, how can we kind of add more things to that house so it starts looking like a more complete structure? And so the first thing you want to do is think about, what do I already know about this topic? Or in a historical sense, like, what are the things that led up to this topic? So she's writing some things down about Washington's farewell address, about the differences between Hamiltonians and Jeffersonians, and those were two of the topics that we had covered right before this video. And so you can see she's talking about like they have different opposing viewpoints, and there are many political issues going on at the time, especially in foreign policy and the role of the government, that those two sides are debating. So now we're getting ready with the video, and she has her, her header here before John Adams took office, which is going to be the first part of the video. So she actually made her own header. It's a slightly different than the one you see up there. Up there you see George Washington's departure. And again, it's good to think about how to put this into your own words. You don't necessarily have to do this, but it helps people actively think when they're taking notes. And it's better than just kind of blindly taking notes. I've seen many students, take, well-written, handwritten notes. They get every single little thing down the slide, but they weren't actually thinking about what they were writing down. And when they go back to review it later, it's kind of just blank because they were just worrying more about could they get every little thing down. So as she's going through the notes, she's changing it up a little bit. She's putting it into her own words. She is summarizing some of these parts. Okay, here's an important thing she's doing. So she's making a big connection to this slide, and she's saying, look, I know I learned about this stuff in Washington's farewell address. So check those notes too for some further context about the Adams presidency. All right, so now we're on a new topic. And you can also notice she's using like a strategic use of highlighters, whether it's green to highlight a new topic coming up. And this is something you should really think about doing too. now she's actually putting in her own kind of cause and effect chain, which is slightly different than what you see actually on the slide. But she's making these connections that the XYZ affair leads to the quasi-war leads to increased division and tensions between the Federalists and the Republicans. So she's made another really important note to herself. So alien sedition X, very important. Make sure she understands it. And again, summarizing things in her own words a bit. Okay, now we're wrapping up these notes. She's putting in the final touches there with the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions and the last bit of information. And now you're going to see doing that important after lecture or after, textbook reading, which is making some of your own conclusions, thinking about what you just wrote down and what you just learned. So again, all these tips are to help you both be efficient and effective in your note taking, and to make sure that, when you're taking notes, like these are things that are going to stick in your brain and help add on to what you already know.